Thank you for coming to my talk this Friday morning. And I want to thank also Mina and Suzanne for inviting me to be part of this ongoing talk about translanguaging. Today, my talk is about making connections, and it's the pedagogical applications of translanguaging. I want to introduce myself. I am Maryse Mijalski. I am a senior lecturer and the French language program director at UC Irvine. I have been teaching for probably over 20 years at UC Irvine. And you have my email here. My email will also be on the last slide today. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions or suggestions after the talk. Again, I will give it to you, my email again, at the end of the talk. To continue here, the agenda for today. So first, I'm going to talk about what is translanguaging. I'm sure you're all very familiar with translanguaging, but before I move on with its application, I think it's good that we agree on some terms because it is a big umbrella term. So it's good, I think, that we define the terms a little bit. I will then go into the pedagogical applications of translanguaging, and this is kind of an overview of the practices that are done in translanguaging. And then I will go over some examples of activities that I do in my class and then do a short conclusion and discussion. So I will start with multilingualism, and we are a multilingual country. And multilingualism is the reason why we're here today speaking about translanguaging. So just a few numbers. According to the latest US Census Bureau, 20% of all Americans can speak two or more languages. This means languages they speak at home fluently. So this is a big number. But in California, where we all are right now, more than 40% of K through 12 students speak a language other than English at home. And we can assume that that percentage is very close to what we experience at the college level. And I have a table I'm going to show you with the 10 top languages spoken at home by K through 12 students in California. And I think you can all guess what the number one is. With no surprise, Spanish, of course, more than 80% is the main language spoken, followed by Vietnamese and Mandarin, and then you can see the other languages. So I wanted to show this to you because, again, translating is about also multilingualism and drawing on this source and this really source of language that we have. So what is translanguaging? I selected a few definitions in the articles I've been reading, and all this also I have a reference page. So if you're interested in those articles, you will see them at the end of the presentation. So translanguaging is the process of switching between two or more languages and the methodology that lies behind it. And I put in bold process and methodology. It is the process of making connections, of making meaning, and it is the process of gaining understanding through the use of one or more languages. And the methodology, this is what I'm going to talk about today, because this is what we're interested in, is how to apply it in the classroom. It is a language practice that involves a deliberate alternation between the language of input and output in the classroom. And in bold, I put the word a deliberate alternation, because we will see that there's a difference between spontaneous and pedagogical translanguaging, and it has to be deliberate. And of course, it's a methodology, so we will have activities that are deliberate. It is an umbrella term that refers to a number of theoretical and practical processes. As I said, it is a big term. In fact, there are many, many definitions, different definitions, depending on the context. For example, for me, I teach French for Spanish speakers. And so I use a methodology called intercomprehension that falls under the umbrella of translanguaging. And it is a form of translanguaging, but focuses of the Romance language family as a linguistic bridge. So it is an umbrella term. It aims at encouraging students to make connections and comparisons through planned activities. Again, the idea of connections and comparisons between the target language and the other languages through planned activities, again, very important here, and it encourages students to access their full linguistic repertoire, and this is really the basis of it. So some, again, definition of terms. In these presentations, I will focus on pedagogical translanguaging in the context of so as practices that can be implemented at various language levels. So the interesting thing about translanguaging is it can be introduced in first year, second year, or advanced courses. It can be introduced for all kinds of languages, really, and in different contexts. So here I think everyone is probably teaching college level, but it could be introduced also for K through 12. Spontaneous versus planned translanguaging in the classroom. Spontaneous translanguaging is what you see happening all the time. You will have students who will see without, doing anything. You will be doing something in the target language, a lesson, and a student will just say, oh, this word, oh, wait, is this the same as this in English, or is this the same as this in Spanish? So translanguaging happens during your classes. I'm sure you've experienced this. But again, here we're talking about planned translanguaging, which is something that is integrated into your curriculum and part of your lesson plan. You may wonder what's the difference between translanguaging and versus translation. We do, translation is it's one of the activities that we do using translanguaging. The main difference is that translation is more of a word-for-word communication of meaning between usually two languages, and it's very close. Translanguaging is different. As I said before, it usually involves more foreign languages, more languages, and it is more, it really is more about understanding the main idea and understanding how the language works, okay? Translanguaging versus intercomprehension, I already covered this. Intercomprehension is really focused on Romance languages, but it is translanguaging also. So here, benefits of translanguaging activities. It motivates weaker learners to engage more in classroom activities. So I'm sure you've experienced learners who they're not necessarily bad students. It's just that they may be more shy, more inhibited. It may be a little bit harder for them to speak in the target language. And for those students, I've seen it happen. Really, I've observed that in groups when they are engaged in activities where they can use what they already know, it really boosts their confidence, and those students really participate much more because they're able to bring something to the class. And again, it's also that the learners take an active role. It's really active learning. Most of the activities, actually all the activities that I do that has to do with involve translanguaging are group activities. So the students really have an active role instead of me kind of reading a text, explaining it. It is the students who do this. It also allows for a deeper reflection on how languages work. And this is something I find really fascinating, is that, most students, if they speak a language, another language other than English, for example, at home, or even English, actually, very much English, any language that they speak at home, many of them don't always have a deep understanding of how their own language works. And I think, and we all notice this probably when we do grammar, and they don't know what this and that is. So I noticed that the students enjoy really thinking about how their own language works. And finally, a deeper understanding of the information and access to more information. I find that I can bring, and I will show you in one of some activities that from the get-go with beginners, after 1 week or 2 weeks, I can already introduce little text, and students are very excited about that. So what is translanguaging as a teaching methodology? So translanguaging, what does it look like as a teaching methodology in the classroom? It integrates a comparative approach alongside a communicative approach. So it complements the communicative approach. So it's not like your course is all translanguaging. My courses are I pretty much use the communicative approach where I am at student using the target language as much as possible and staying in the target language. But translanguaging is brought in as a complement, as it's integrated as activities on a regular basis, not all the time, you don't always have time, but as a regular basis to complement a communicative approach. So I'm not saying that in a classroom where you have translanguaging, anything goes. We speak any kind of languages. No, that's not what it is. It is still a French class or an Italian class or a German class. But you bring in another perspective, another type of activities. So what does it do? It promotes noticing of similarities, differences between French, Spanish, English, and other languages. I'm not sure how to bring the other one. Yeah, it draws learners' attention to similarities and differences, and it encourages comparison by activating the learner's prior multilingual knowledge. And what's important to know is that, and you've probably observe this, is that yes, you may have the occasional student who will notice things, but for the most part, students, even if they speak Spanish, even if they speak like Romance languages that are a bit closer to French or to Italian and Spanish, they don't systematically and naturally notice. So it is what translanguaging activities is a way to really encourage students to notice similarities and differences, but also to draw them to those similarities and differences in the target language and the language they learn. So what do the activities look like? So I'm going to give you kind of a quick overview of what they look like, and then I'll get into some examples, okay? So what do they look like? So noticing here. So students, again, they do not necessarily notice things. So learners, they develop skill sets for reading comprehension using one or more languages. So some of these skill sets would be, for example, some of the activities that you can do to develop skill sets for reading comprehension, which you probably already do. I think that the main difference here would be also using other languages, but annotating, comprehension questions, discussion in target language and other languages, writing one sentence summary of parts of a text in another language, using different colors to highlight cognates, other colors to highlight unknown words. So this would be kind of, when you have, for example, you're introducing a short text, this would be kind of the background work that you would start doing with the students. And then you can work on collaborative translation, not a word-for-word translation, but just understanding the main idea. Students do not have, in a translanguaging activity, they do not have to translate word for word. It's the idea of understanding kind of the main idea of the sentences and the story altogether, the paragraph. Another activity is summarizing. It's really good for students to summarize. It can be a short text, but it can be a video, and they could summarize it in another language. And another activity would be also comparing. So, for example, this works for grammar, highlighting the differences and the similarities, which you probably already know. This it lends itself really well to Romance languages with comparing. So I will show you example of this as well. Um, I just wanted to quickly tell you a little bit about French for Spanish speakers at UCI, and then I'll go into the activities. So my experience for translanguaging really started with French for Spanish speakers, and this is really what I do the most. Translanguaging is really in this class. However, for the past couple of years, I've also integrated translanguaging in my regular classes, especially for reading and translation. So just a little overview. French for Spanish speakers started in 2020. It's a first-year accelerated class over UC quarters, so in quarter system. So the students do in 2 quarters what the regular class does in 3 quarters. So it is very accelerated. It's open to Spanish speakers and any student who had a minimum of 3 years of high school high school Spanish. The average class is 20 students. It's 5 hours per week, quarter unit. I will start a hybrid version of it in the fall because 5 hours is a lot for students. It was in person until now. And at UCI, we also now have Italian for Spanish speakers that is very successful as well. So I will show you some examples of activity. I think we have still about 20 minutes, right? Okay, so I think I'm good. So examples of activities now. So I just want to show you that there are really 3 main activities that I do with translanguaging. The main one is really reading and translation. I do this with French for Spanish speakers, but I do this also in my regular class. The other one has to do with some listening comprehension video activities, and then grammar activities. This is also much more with French for Spanish speakers. So the reading and translation, here I put some examples of little text that I do, and I was just going to share those with you. So the first, actually, I'm going to go with number 4. Should I put it first? The Homme de couleur, I forgot, there is another text, Mon frère blanc, Mon frère blanc, is a text by Senghor. And this is a text actually that I bring in the second week of class for beginners, complete beginners, when we do colors. And so this is, I have a little PowerPoint with the Senghor's biography. Do you all see the change? You all saw that? Okay, good. So this is a little biography that, frankly, I wrote based on things I found. And here, what I do is usually I will read the text aloud in class, work a little bit on pronunciation, but that's it. I'm not giving them any information. And then I'll make groups. So usually I make I like groups of 3 because I'm not too many, too small. And I don't necessarily ask students to go by the language they know. I think that because we have so much diversity in the classroom, we have enough students of different. So in French for Spanish speakers, obviously it will be Spanish speakers, but in my regular class, it can be a student of Chinese and a student who speaks just English. It doesn't matter really. And then I change the group so they have different languages. So this is just what's underlined. I mean, at the beginning, when I start in first year, I do a lot of underlining already what I know they will recognize with the cognates. It can be in English, can be in Spanish, of course, in any other language. It's very close. I underline it again because the idea of noticing, because again, weirdly, sometimes I'm surprised they don't notice certain things. But so I really underline a lot of what they need to kind of focus on, because again, it's not obvious. So here I would just ask them, in groups to read the text again together and just note just translate the underlined words And then I have just, comprehension questions that you may have also. Qui est Léopold Senghor? So who is he? Where does he come from? Why is he an important man? And this is all in here. So it's very simple, but again, remember that these are students who had 1 week of French only, or maybe 1.5 week. This is a little exercise. I also, sometimes some students may ask questions why, in English it would be in Senegal, in Africa, or in Spanish in Senegal and Africa. So why is it O and on? So sometimes they will ask things, sometimes they won't, but it's fine either way. And then this is what you probably know it already, but this is then the poem that I give them, Cher Frère Blanc. Here it has there are a lot of cognates, especially for French, for Spanish speakers, for Spanish-speaking students. And the interesting part here is there are verbs in the present tense, in the past tense, in the future, and they are actually able to get this. So then I give them the poem again. We read it out loud first, and then I give them the poem, and then I ask them to recognize questions like, what are the colors in here that are mentioned, and what can you recognize the verb tense. And with Spanish speakers, they obviously recognize a lot of words in here. So this is one example. The other one that I like is this one, Ma Famille. So this is lingua.com. I don't know if you know it, but I use it a lot. So these are not authentic text. So I know that may not always be very good. I don't use only authentic text, but sometimes they're useful for this kind of text that are written for learners, are also good for this type of exercise. So lingua.com is it's not just in French. Actually, that's why I like it. For you have all kind of languages. So I think if you don't teach French, you can probably find, although I don't know if there is no Arabic though. I don't think so. Unfortunately, I'm sure you don't have a ton of resources in Arabic. So this is another exercise that I do with them here. I really like it because they can do this also on their computer, because here there are comprehension questions and you can do the same exercise. So this is more something that I use online. It's more of an online one. This one here, Liberté, it's an interesting poem by Paul Éluard. And again, I introduced this very early on, probably in the 3rd or 4th week of the quarter, when we're doing like school. And here you see that we have the vocabulaire en rouge, the vocabulary. So in here, usually I ask them to find cognates. It can be in English, it can be in any language, but I really want them to translate. And this again, in Spanish, it's a little closer because pupitre, árboles, it's kind of the same, escribo. So it has a little bit more with Spanish and French, but this can be done as well. So highlighting some words and then having a little in groups, giving them an activity where they have to translate the words, and then they have to at the end translate the poem. And they can also write the words that they really don't understand, but often in the groups they are able to make sense of it. And that's what I try to stress with them, is that sometimes you can really try to guess, and sometimes you can guess, that's fine, but you can also make some guesses. So it's more getting the main understanding. Demain de l'Aube, you know this poem by Victor Hugo if you teach French. Again here, this one I didn't highlight, but you could do this as well. This is a poem I introduce in the last quarter of French 1 when we do the future tense. So that would be maybe language 2 for you. And again, here is this one here, again, it is the biography of Victor Hugo. And these are also words in red that students should be able to translate. So here they have to find word in red in Spanish, but you could do this with other languages. Here's the example of Spanish. Are there also cognates with English? And then make a list of the words that you don't understand. And then there's comprehension questions. That's something that you may do as well. And then I think I went over this here. And then the resources here that I like, because it has many texts that are easy. The main thing is really to find texts that lend themselves to this kind of translation, depending, of course, I'm sure that you do that, and I do too at the high level, like in French too, advanced courses, you introduce, obviously, and even in first year, more authentic text. But this works well, actually, for this kind of exercises, as well as Lawless French reading, which has a lot of, Lawless French has a lot of excerpts of literary texts. So this is also good for this. Video activities, how much longer I have? Yeah. Video activities. This is something that I do in French for Spanish speakers, but again, you can find videos that you can use for this. This is when I introduce the past tenses, the two past tenses, and for French for Spanish speakers, I introduce it together. Of course, then we focus on one or the other, but because they already have this concept in Spanish and maybe in Italian too, so I usually introduce the past tense together. So this is a short interview with the journalist Elena Poniatowska, who is, she's French-Mexican, so she grew up in France, but then moved when she was a teenager to Paris. And she's interviewed by a French woman who lives in Mexico City. And the interview is in French, but the subtitles are in Spanish. So it's really interesting. And again, here with we work with this video with comprehension question, but as well afterwards, kind of working with the words in Spanish in the translation, and kind of working on what is pretérito imperfecto, because even in Spanish, with Spanish speakers, they don't always understand those terms. I mean, they spoke Spanish at home. The ones who took Spanish in school, I find, often have a little more less difficulties with French, because they already have the knowledge of the grammar and how it works in Spanish. But for many of them, actually, they don't really, I mean, they can say it, of course, but they don't always know about it. So it's really good to have this. And I'll show you just 1 minute of this video, just to give you an example. Oh yeah, it is playing. I apologize for the ad.
For up to 0 leaks, 0 odor, try Always Discreet.
Sorry,
now at a new low price.
Demander à les rue Berton.
So,
Hola amigos, espero que estén bien. Bienvenidos al nuevo capítulo de Cero Voyage. Hoy en el canal vamos a tener una invitada especial que no necesita presentación porque ustedes ya todos la conocen, Elena Poniatowska.
Buenas tardes.
Muchas gracias por tenernos aquí en su casa. Vous êtes arrivé à Mexico quand vous aviez 10 ans.
Oui.
Oui. Et après, votre père était resté en France pour se battre pendant la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Il est venu vous rejoindre quand la guerre est terminée et on vous a envoyé étudier aux États-Unis. Pourquoi est-ce que vous n'avez pas choisi de retourner en France?
Ma mère pensait que nous allions revenir tous en France, toute la
Okay, so I'm not going to show the whole video, but this is an example. The other thing I do with videos is I have it once, I have the video playing, and then I play it a second time, and I stop when there are subtitles like this. I will stop on the subtitles. For example, here you have Spanish subtitles. I will stop on some of the sentences and ask students, so here, how did she say this word? Did you get it? How did she say this? How did she say that? It may not be the whole sentence because it would be difficult, but it's because, again, this is a first year French, but this is often what I do with the videos, also stop them and see, or how would you say it in English, or how would you say it in another language? Because even if all the students are not Spanish speakers, it would you can have a video with English subtitles and do the same thing. The other one is Vivre au Mexique. This one is a video. It's this woman who she's a YouTuber. She lives in Mexico City. She's French, and she does a bunch of silly videos. I mean, not silly, but funny videos. She speaks quite fast though. But this one here, for this, the exercise in here is first, students will just do like circle the right answer that they hear. So they will watch the video. The video is in French with subtitles in Spanish. Sans les sous-titres. So here they watch again the video without the subtitles, and they have now this one here. I don't put the subtitles at all the second time, and they have to observe the word in French and Spanish that are similar. So here's more of a listening comprehension, and then well, it's about the city. So then they have to do an activity that you would do, like about talking about their city, and this is in French in here. So this one in here.
6 heures du matin, il y a du trafic. Hola, hola les amis, bonjour à tous, bienvenue à une nouvelle vidéo de Hi Madame. Tout d'abord, si vous êtes nouveau sur ma chaîne, je vous invite à vous abonner ici juste en bas. On peut commencer. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous parler de mon expérience de vie ici au Mexique, des habitudes et de nombreux points importants à savoir si vous aussi vous décidez de venir vivre tout comme moi dans ce merveilleux pays. Vous êtes prêts? C'est parti. La première chose à savoir concerne la circulation. Alors c'est vrai, si vous êtes habitué à vivre à Paris, il n'y a pas trop de problème de ce côté.
Okay. So this is another example of videos that you can do that have subtitles. And again, there's different things you can do. You can also have a transcription. That's another thing that I've done. So you have, I'm sure you all know Easy French videos. I use them a lot because the only thing with Easy French, you can't remove I mean, I haven't found a way to remove the subtitles. So that sometimes can be problematic, but there's a ton of videos of Easy French that I use, and they are very good for this. And then finally, the last activities I'm going to show you is, so the other activities is more really for French for Spanish speakers, but I guess that you could do this with other languages. Here, this is a PowerPoint that I did here. So this is a PowerPoint that I already had existing here, PowerPoint, to introduce people, qui est and who is it, and this is, it introduces also adjectives. And so this is a PowerPoint I already had, so I just added to it for the grammar. So this actually, when the PowerPoint is on, they see the French and then they have to come up with the Spanish. And you could do this, I suppose, with other languages perhaps. Here, there's just regular activities. And after doing this, this is a translation here. And then I have to write the text with Fatima in French, and this is for adjectives. So here, this is another example. And then for the passé composé here, this is a text that I introduce when they do the passé composé, which is one of the French past tenses. And again, here, this is also an example of a text that really lends itself to translation. So it's used for the passé composé and also working on translation. For Spanish, French for Spanish speakers, I also have some worksheet that we do in class to compare and have kind of the French and Spanish, something like indefinite articles, which are somewhat similar with some differences too. Or here, another worksheet was to compare. I mean, this is pretty dry, but it's kind of a way for them to learn the vocabulary. And this is kind of translation work, but not as much as a text, but more to work on vocabulary and on expressions in here. So I'm almost done, so I think I'm on time. Here, just an overview of how to Sorry, 1 second. Okay, how to design activities using comprehension and translation. So again, translanguaging activities are not the whole, you do not have to change your entire curriculum, syllabus, textbook, course material. It really adapts to existing whatever you're doing now, and this is the beauty of it. You don't have to do so much. So first, identify grammatical structures that are similar in French and Spanish, French and English, and other languages when it comes to grammar. Develop strategies and activities that encourage comparing. Adapt your existing material, so you could add slides to an existing PowerPoint to compare two or more languages, or you could really, at the end of a PowerPoint, like I did, you could have a short text that students will work on using translanguaging. So as I showed you before in the activity of this PowerPoint about introducing people and adjectives, which is something we do in the first year of, first week of French, actually. At the very end, I added a little text to work on translanguaging, and select short text suitable for translation and comparison. So I've shown you some websites. It is important really to that they are suitable for translation, because especially at the beginning, of course, in second year, you could actually do it with whatever text you're already using. But in first year, you need to be careful what you use. And I'm all for authentic material and authentic text, but at the same time, for translanguaging, it's kind of good to work with, to kind of really plan it very well, so it does work. In conclusion, just to quickly go over what I talked about. So pedagogical translanguaging as a methodology complements the communicative approach. You're not changing everything. Still, your target language is the language of the classroom, the main language, with the aim for students. And actually, it's good to have that, because as much as it is a good methodology for weaker students, I read in one of the articles, it was interesting that very strong students may not like it. Many strong students like to stay in the target language. And so if translanguaging is always changing languages and having too much of it may be a bit discouraging. They may be a bit like, oh, that's boring. So it is important to obviously keep the target language, the main language of the classroom. And when you have those translanguaging activities, I have them maybe every 1 week to 10 days. I try to bring those texts that goes with what we're doing in class. At least those students who are stronger don't feel frustrated. Oh, there's not enough French, and then you don't get it on your evaluation. Oh, she speaks too much about another language or something like that. Target language is still used as much as possible during instruction and interactions, obviously. Pedagogical translanguaging is deliberate, involves planned activities with using 2 or more languages, and students do not have to be fluent in another language other than English to participate. Actually, I have a student this quarter who is taking Italian 2. So she's in French 1, Italian 2. And I mean, I ask her, I tell her, use that, use what you've learned in Italian, use Italian. How can you compare with Italian? And so the students, it could be that you have students who are learning 2 languages, and they can use that as well. And the main goal of translanguaging activities is to help and encourage students to notice similarities and differences and make connections between the new language they're learning and the ones that they already know. This is some references, and I think you'll have access to the PowerPoint. So if you're interested, these are all articles. They're not very long, and I found them very interesting. This is my contact information again, and I am done. I hope I'm on